Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. In the build-up to last year's elections, the issue of women inclusion in Nigerian politics was a significant conversation, much like youth participation in governance. A lot was said about just how much women can bring to the table if the needed opportunities are given to them to contest elective positions. The elections have come and gone, and critically, the number of women who emerged as elected representatives is still abysmally low. To a lot of people, the much talked about 35% allocation to women under affirmative action in APC is beginning to look like a pipe dream after all. Well, we are being joined now from Owerri, Imo State, by Chinedu Anyanwu, a woman inclusion activist and politician who contested for a seat in the Imo State House of Assembly. Good morning to you and welcome to the morning show. It's nice to meet you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. First off, I would like to ask, what do you think the significant barriers to entry in politics are for Nigerian women, especially when it comes to finance? Do you think it's mostly finance, or do you think it's misogyny or the perception of women in Nigerian politics?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. Finance is definitely one of them. The lack of intentionality is one of them. Low political savviness, and the list goes on. When we talk about finance, it's just one of the things that women lack, because everyone knows that running elections in Nigeria is expensive. But you do have a few women who are able to run the elections and don't have financial constraints. But they're not politically savvy. And what I mean by that is they really don't understand how politics works in Nigeria. And then they don't have the requisite networks. So we understand that we run a patronage-based political system. So at the end of the day, it's a combination of competence, it's also a combination of who you know, and then character. Yes, the character is being downplayed, but the essence of what I'm saying is it goes way ahead of funding. I think if I want to cap it in one word, is the lack of intentionality that undermines women participation.
All right then, the concept of affirmative action, of course, aims at achieving this 35% allocation of political positions for women. But despite all the hype around this women's inclusion in politics during the last election, we're still seeing the number of elected women representatives remaining low. Now, as someone who contested for a seat in the Imo State House of Assembly, I wonder if you can share some of your personal experiences regarding the challenges that women face in Nigerian politics, and what role do you believe that political parties can play in promoting gender equality within their structures and ensuring that women have the opportunity to contest and hold leadership positions?
Okay, so to start up with, I did mention a few seconds ago about the lack of intentionality. In most parts of the country, the business of election is over. We're now back to the business of governance. And what you will find out is this is actually the time for political parties to include in their party constitution quota systems or strategic measures to ensure that women are included. We know the national gender policy talks about minimum 35%. In Nigeria as of today, since 1999, we have been operating lower than 10%. And the 10% is a very modest figure. It's actually much lower than that. If you talk about the gender policy ranking, the global gender policy ranking, as of 2023, Nigeria ranks 142 out of 146 countries, ahead of countries like Iran, Afghanistan, Lebanon. So you can imagine. So this is the time for governments, this is the time for political parties to be intentional. Governments on their part could ensure the enforcement of these laws. In 2022, the Federal High Court in Abuja did rule in favor of the 35%. Where are we today? We're way behind it. Nothing has been done about it. We always talk about it in principle, but when it comes to implementation, then we're low. So government should look into enforcement, implementation. Then political parties should also ensure that they have those measures in place. And at this point, I will commend the Imo State Governor, His Excellency Hope Uzodinma. He did choose a female deputy governor, and they've been inaugurated as it stands today. And he stood against the norm. We had one ministerial slot when it comes to Imo State. A woman occupies that seat. There are other roles that women have occupied, but we're bringing to remembrance the fact that now we've finished with an inauguration. The governor has said that people should come together collaboratively to push and progress Imo State. He's also said that he's willing to be inclusive of people who are outside of the party and also technocrats. I think that's a very good move that other governments should adopt, other states should adopt. So if we're going to put these things in place, it's going to give it a strategic intent that is implementable, not just paper. And when it comes to implementing it, 2027, we now start talking about it. No, this is the time to put those strategies in place.
All right. I like the fact that you used your state, Imo State, as a reference in terms of how women are being put in positions of power. But my question is to get your thoughts on why you think that Nigeria is consistently not meeting the 35% affirmative action for women's inclusion in politics and, in governance. And I wanted to ask if you think that the performance of women generally in positions of power or in politics has to do with why they are not being given what is ideal in terms of 35%. You mentioned that the Honorable Minister, the slot for the Honorable Minister from Imo State is occupied by a woman. But a lot of people will say that what have we seen, what have we heard from this woman that you mentioned? We have seen, for example, how one of the leading women in APC, and of course in the cabinet of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is now enmeshed in corruption. There is also another women minister, who has been battling one form of controversy or the other since she resumed office. Do you think that this sort of low performance has to do with why voters on the one hand and those who make appointments think that 35% at this point might be too much for Nigerian women in politics?
Okay, let me start by saying the issues that have come up in recent times could as well be associated with a man as a woman. So it's not cast on stone that this is because it's a woman or it has to do with women. Going back to your original question, this is not an agenda to campaign for feminism in the sense that we're talking about, what a man has, a woman should have. Definitely not. What we're saying is equity. And when we say equity, what we're talking about is the fact that people require different resources and opportunities. We recognize that. But at the point where we've established that everybody vying for an elective position or an appointed office is competent and we can rate them at the same level, then we should not use bias to eliminate based on race, based on gender, or what have you. So definitely, we're making a case for competence. I think that in every situation, if you're talking about opportunities, preparation precedes opportunities. If we talk about education, we know that social stereotypes have played a big disadvantage and has undermined the plight of women in Nigeria. In some states, when you talk about education statistics for females as against males, the males are much higher because women are seen as nocturnal and should be geared towards the home front. But that also plays a ripple effect in the negative side in the long run, Because when you come out for elective positions, how many are prepared? How many are equipped? Before we get to how many are provided with an enabling environment. So if we're going to talk about what are the issues, I would say it's two sides of a coin. On one side, women have been faced with poor education. Women have been faced with low political savviness. Women also lack requisite networks. And I'm trying to be modest about it when I say requisite networks, because women are faced with more challenges in some cases. When you go into a political scene, it seems like, what do you have to offer? If you want me to bring on my brains, that's perfect, that's excellent. But when you're looking for something undue in order to get that position, you're now talking about compromise. How many women are willing to do that level of compromise? So these are some of the things that women face. On the other side of the coin, I contested elections. I used to be a member of a party. I contested elections. The party gave some discount for women in purchase of the forms. It came up to about 200, 300,000. But in the long run, I see it as, they were just preparing us for an eventual scam. What do I mean? 27 local governments, not one woman emerged. And you're telling me you're an inclusive political party. Are we trying to suggest that there is no woman who is capable? And I'm not saying, oh, it must be me. In my constituency, we were 7 of us. I was the only female. And I was not asking for any preferential treatment. In fact, I think that if a woman comes on board and she expects that you're giving that preference because you're a woman, she shouldn't be there. The agenda is, look, I'm able to operate at the same capacity with the men. Rate us based on our competence and character, and not based on being a woman or a man. And that's what we're saying. So if we're talking about hindrances to the women, there are many. I ran an election, and at the point in time when I should have been getting encouragement, I had senior leaders calling me to step down for the nominated candidates. How do you go from there? I had reputable people sending messages to me, you don't sound like you want to run an election in the future. So what they were saying is me coming out as a woman was reducing their chances of winning in an election. What are the bases to come up to that conclusion? So there's more than meets the eye. You did mention about the minister, the 2 ministers, and some other instances of women having issues. I will say something, there's more than meets the eye. While I will not comment too much about specific case, because government has said that they're investigating it and we should await the outcome. But at the same time, I will tell you something. Yes, government should be intentional in the act of training for occupying the role of governance. Yes, intentionality is required. You need responsible and accountable leadership. But we need to go back to the drawing board. Are we actually putting round pegs in round holes? Square pegs in square holes? That's where we begin to talk from. Not from the point of she's a woman or she's a man. And that's why I started by saying the agenda here is not to make a case for feminism, to say what is due a man is due a woman. No. If there are people vying for a position and only the man is the most qualified, by all means he should go. I mean, I'm not even advocating. I'm not one of those that would advocate for the reserved seats for women. Because I see, to me, I believe that in the future, what that is going to do is still make a kind of patronizing case for women. No, we're not asking to be handed down freebies. No, we're saying bring us to the drawing board. When I'm in the home, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister. When I'm in the boardroom, when I'm facing politics, deal with me based on my competence, my capacity, my character. That's what we're saying. So if we're talking about what have women done, I will ask the first question. Who did we put in what position? The process by which people emerged, were they credible positions? We've had governments in the past that have brought about the likes of Okonjo-Iweala, Obi Ezekwesili. We even have Chris Anyanwu. You have a couple of other people. You have Kemachiko. You have other people. What allegations were for or what allegations were against them? So let's, pair them together. Not orange with apples. And in that sense, I'm not judging anybody because I feel that the Honorable Minister, Betta Edu, she's not going to tell us everything on air, but there's more than meets the eye. And if you want women to perform, just like if men are going to perform, you need to create an enabling environment. So government, political parties, stakeholders across board all have their part to play to ensure that we have a thriving government. And that's what I think.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Chinedu Anyanwu, politician and women inclusion activist. We appreciate your time and analysis on The Morning Show.